wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
You're listening to A Quirky Journey, the healthy family podcast with your hosts Jo Whitten and Fuad Kassab. Hey everyone, happy Friday. Welcome to A Quirky Journey. Today we're going to have a really good chat with my friend Elyse Comerford, nutritionist, health scientist and GAPS practitioner, all about histamines and mast cell activation and what that means and what it involves. And we've answered lots of questions from the Facebook chat groups and from emails. And so I hope this podcast will be really helpful for you. I know it was for me. There's always more information that I can learn, especially about, these tricky subjects that we get a lot of questions about. And it's never a simple answer that covers everybody, but there's lots of different variables to look at. And hopefully you'll find some things that you can work on to improve your histamine issues, if that's why you're listening. Today we have gorgeous blue skies, sunshine, and there was actually frost last night, but in the day it warms up beautifully, although I still haven't been game to jump in the lake yet. Some people do, but I'm a bit of a wuss when it comes to cold water. But during the day it's in the 20s, so it's lovely. So come visit Far North Queensland. So next seminars we're hoping to hold in November down around Byron Bay and Brisbane. So stay tuned for those if you live in that area. And we really do want to take our seminars to other places where it's needed. So if you really want us to come to where you live, send us a message on Facebook or email and let us know. If you think of a great venue, let us know. We're always looking for places to take seminars. All right, so in other news, don't forget that I'm sending out meal plans with links to recipes every week now. That's another question that I get asked a lot, is how to organize for the week so that you're not overwhelmed with the cooking and you can't keep up with healthy eating because you just can't keep up with the cooking for the family. So this is something that I've always loved helping people with, working out a menu for the week, a plan, even if it's just a very flexible plan, or if you're a detailed planner, I've got you covered as well. So snack ideas, light meal ideas. When I say light meals, I mean breakfast or lunch, because I don't eat traditional breakfast food like cereal. I eat meals, so light meals and dinners, things that you can prepare ahead, bulk cook and freeze, things that you can have on hand like condiments and 24-hour sour cream and things like that you can have in the fridge to bulk out your meals. That kind of stuff really helps you to get ahead. So if you'd like to be on the mailing list to get my meal plans and recipes each week, all you have to do is go to the blog and click on the subscribe button in the sidebar, and you'll be able to join up to the newsletter and receive that every Friday. Unless I'm late, then it may be Saturday because, I am a very flexible person. So some days I go to the lake instead of getting my meal plan done, and then I have to do the meal plan the next day. That's what happened this week. So hopefully it will be in your inbox on Friday though, Friday or Saturday. Okay, so on to the interview. Fuad didn't get to join us this time, but Elyse and I have a really good chat about histamine issues. And if you do have any questions, feel free to email either Elyse or myself, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And the Quirky Cooking email is help@quirkycooking.com.au, or you can go to ElyseComerford.com and click on her contact form and email her that way. Okay, have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll get onto the podcast. Hope you enjoy it. Bye. Hi, Elyse. How you going?
Hi, Jo. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Well, as I mentioned in the intro, we get a lot of questions about histamines, histamine reactions, what foods you should eat when you're having histamine issues, people who've been diagnosed with mast cell activation and what they should do and how they're so overwhelmed, people who have been told to eat a certain diet because of histamine issues but want to know if it's the right diet. We've got heaps of questions for you.
Yes, I know. Histamine is such a big topic in the GAPS community.
Do you get heaps of questions on it?
Yes, I would say like 90% of my clients have histamine issues.
Right.
It's kind of goes part and parcel, hand in hand with gut issues, that there is usually some level of histamine intolerance.
So why do you think histamine issues are such a thing now? Like, I don't remember hearing, I mean, I suppose I had them when I was a kid. I know I did, but it seems like it's gotten worse.
Yeah, and I had them as a kid too. I remember I used to get hives sometimes, and my parents would just be like, "What's that from?" and never trying to connect it with, "Well, what did you eat?" or we just didn't think that way then.
No, well, mine was like violent sneezing every single morning of my life for all my growing up years. Like I would start at 6 a.m. and my sister used to just go, "Oh, I hate this," because she was sharing a room with me. And, always the runny nose, the headaches, all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There is so many symptoms. Maybe a good place to start would be just explaining what histamines are, because there's probably people going, "What are they talking about?"
Yes, that will be perfect. Thank you.
And I think a lot of people that have probably been hearing about it, seeing it in the group and going, "I don't even understand what this is," or if I need to be worried about it. I think a lot of people hear about it and go, "Is this something that I should be thinking about?"
Don't add it to your list if you don't need to.
To my list to think about.
Yeah.
So histamine is something that we actually require in our body. It does help our immune system respond to things. I'm trying to just give a really basic description here.
That's good.
So it helps in immune system function. Histamines help with digestion. We need it for our central nervous system function. It's a neurotransmitter, communicates in messages from your body to your brain. It's also a component of stomach acid, so you need histamine to help break down food in your stomach. So histamine is not the enemy. Right. It's just that when things aren't going as we would hope they are in our body, when things are out of balance, that histamine is also one of those things that can be out of balance.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
No, you go ahead. When you finish explaining that, I have a question.
All right. So histamine, normal thing to be in our body. It's something that it is helpful. We need histamine, but it's this overreactiveness that we can then see an issue with histamine. So there's so many ways to talk about histamine. You can pull me up at any time because there's so many rabbit holes to go down with it. But when we're if we kind of look at how histamine should act and then what should happen once that's over, it really comes down to histamine should be released in response to something, and then it should be broken down by the body again. So there should just be this normal process of histamine release, histamine being broken down by enzymes. There's a couple of different enzymes. There's diamine oxidase, which is an enzyme that breaks it down in the digestive tract, and then there's histamine N-methyltransferase, or HMT for short, that breaks down the histamine in the central nervous system. So we've got these factors involved that break down the histamine. So when we can run into trouble is if those factors aren't working properly. So that's one of the reasons that people could have a histamine issue. Histamine's being released in their system, but our body is not able to then break it down properly. So we end up with histamine levels that are too high. So other ways this can be happening is we can have poor methylation in the liver. That's a whole nother story. But if we're basically not detoxing well, then we're not breaking down histamine properly. We can also be producing too much histamine. So one aspect how this can happen is if there's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, then some of those bacteria will actually convert more histidine to histamine. So we'll end up with too much histamine. So it's often not just one thing going on.
Yeah.
DAO, the diamine oxidase that breaks down histamine in the digestive system, it's produced in the gut. So when there's gut damage, then we're not producing enough of the diamine oxidase to break down histamine. If there's gut damage and increased toxicity in the system, then we're going to end up with a liver that's not very happy. So that's going to affect our histamine breakdown. And then if we have this overgrowth of histamine producing bacteria, then we're having too much histamine produced. So there's kind of a few factors going on there that results in a system that has too much histamine going on.
Right.
And so what histamine does is it is kind of like the red flag in our system that attracts the white blood cells to come and repair damage. So when there's signs of inflammation in the body, inflammation is like, here's the bubble wrap around this part of the body, there's the inflammation, right? We need histamine to come and dilate the blood vessels, and then we need that immune reaction to come along and fix the problem. So when we've got too much histamine in our system, because we're producing too much, we're not breaking it down properly, our body is in this reactive state that is almost like having an allergic reaction without an allergen present. It is just that our histamine levels are too high. So then you can end up with some symptoms like having red, itchy eyes, runny nose, sneezing, hives, aching arms and legs, like feeling heavy in the limbs. Your mind can really be racing and overly focused on things. So, you can't stop scrolling on Facebook and drag yourself away from something you're doing. That's because the dilated blood vessels in the brain, more blood going to the brain. You can talk really fast, interrupt people when they're talking. They're the kind of people that may have high histamine. Type A personalities are generally your high histamine people. Other histamine symptoms, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Headaches, heart palpitations.
Is racing heart?
Racing heart.
Because I think that's been one of mine.
Yeah, low blood pressure.
Yeah.
Increased saliva, eyes tearing, like getting watery eyes. I think that kind of gives a good overall look, Adam. So a lot of it's like that allergic reaction kind of fevery kind of feeling. So that's just having too many of those histamines in your system, and then your body's in that reactive state.
Right.
Questions?
So what about mast cell activation? What does that mean?
So mast cell activation disorder kind of falls in there as well. It's more like a term that is really given for histamine intolerance these days. And it's just basically saying that your immune system is overreactive.
Right.
So, it kind of just falls in there as being a part of this reason that we've got this histamine intolerance, that the immune system is overactive.
Okay, got it. So do you want to talk about some causes? Like you mentioned gut health. Oh, you did sort of mention some causes already, but like the first thing you were talking about with histamines, where your body's not break those enzymes and not breaking them down, is that because of poor gut health, or why is that?
Yeah, so that is poor gut health. So if our gut health is not good, then we're not producing the diamine oxidase in the gut and then breaking it down properly.
Okay.
So you can kind of see it's a bit of a slippery slope when the gut health isn't good, that this combination of factors ends up coming in. It's not just one thing. So it's just this combination of things. So
if you weren't sure if you weren't sure if you have poor gut health, I was at a seminar on the weekend, and the naturopath was mentioning how a lot of people just assume, well, I must have a leaky gut, and so they start doing, say, the GAPS diet or something, she said, and sometimes it's not that. Sometimes they don't have a leaky gut. What else would you mean by gut issues besides leaky gut? Like, can you have gut health issues and not have a leaky gut?
That's a really hard question.
Sorry, I've just been wondering that.
No, it's good. It's a good question. But it is a hard one to answer, because to know the answer to that, we'd need to test so many people and know that the testing we're doing is really accurate to know if there's leaky gut, what's going on here. I think it's rare for there not to be some level of leaky gut going on, and it will be developing in some way or another, because it kind of goes hand in hand. When we kind of look at the snowball effect of gut health, it's once the microbiome is out of balance, it's not long until the gut will be leaky, because the gut lining needs a balanced microbiome to keep the gut lining healthy. They have a symbiotic relationship. Yeah. So it won't be long of having an unhealthy microbiome until the gut lining will become leaky. I don't really test for that kind of thing. I don't do intestinal permeability testing, or I don't test for leaky gut, because regardless, it won't change our approach. I'm really picky about testing for that reason, because it's so expensive. You can have people spending so much money on testing. So I only ever get someone to test. I'd be interested in the results, but that's not enough to get someone to spend the money on them. It's really, when the approach is still going to be the same, then there's no point in testing. And when it comes to anyone with a histamine issue, then I would be looking at doing GAPS. That's the way that
that's the approach that you would
histamine issues. And we're never really going to know, is it the diamine oxidase? Is it the histamine producing bacteria? Is it your liver? Like, it's really hard to know, and it's usually the answer is a combination of those things.
But regardless, you can heal all those things with GAPS, you're saying?
Yeah, I have seen GAPS heal all of those things. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So what do you say to the people who say, I tried GAPS, but my histamine reactions got worse? You know, what would you, is it that they're just going too hard too fast, or?
Yeah, so the way you approach GAPS when there's histamine issues is that when it comes to the stocks, a lot of people are still doing bone broths, when what we actually do on GAPS is we do short cooked meat stocks. So the short cooked meat stocks are going to be low in histamine. So the sources of histamine, I didn't really mention that. So sources of histamine, that can increase those histamine levels in your body. There's a bit of contention over leftover food, whether it's histamine or bacteria that's causing the response. So some scientists think it's the pathogens that grow on the food that's causing the response, and other people say it's histamine. We don't really know, but it does seem to affect people. So food leftovers, cooking things for a really long time. So that's where bone broths aren't really good there. We want to do the short cooked meat stocks. They can be sources of histamine, and then there's other foods that can be sources of histamine as well, either containing histamine themselves or liberating histamine in our system. So things like avocado, tomatoes, strawberries, honey, nuts, fermented foods, coconut, red wine. They're things that can be higher in histamine. Fish, yeah. Pork is high as well.
Okay. So, sorry, I had the leftovers question, the leftovers subject. What if you make a meal, cool it quickly, freeze it quickly? That doesn't fall into the same category as leftovers left in the fridge for a day or so, does it?
Leftovers left in the fridge for a day or so. Okay. With histamine intolerance, it really depends on where your level of tolerance is as to how you respond to things. So everyone has a tolerance level of histamine, full stop anyway. It's like, a good analogy for the histamine thing is, if you have a sink full of water and with a tap dripping into it, and there's a plug at the bottom, like a hole in the bottom of the sink, if the tap's dripping more water in than the sink hole can get rid of, then eventually it's going to overflow. So the size of everyone's sink is different, and it's more gut issues you have, your tolerance level is going to be lower. So what each person, there's people that can tolerate 1 or 2 days in the fridge of leftovers and they're fine any longer and they're not. There's other people that can't even leave leftovers in the fridge for half a day.
Right.
They'll need to freeze them. And then even the freezing time, there's some people that any more than 2 days in the freezer, they can't have it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's the level of tolerance is different for everyone. And the way I suggest managing the histamine intolerance or mast cell activation syndrome is by keeping the levels at where you can tolerate. So the really big difference here is talking about the healing foods and foods that are just a source of histamine. So there's this catch-22 of dealing with histamine issues where you need to use histamine-containing foods to resolve the histamine issue. But
that's frustrating.
It is frustrating. But done properly,
it can be done.
The meat stocks should not be high in histamine. It's just that naturally meat is protein, so naturally it will contain histamine. So the short cooked meat stocks will be low histamine, and then the fermented foods, also done properly, shouldn't be a source of histamine. So that's so that's when we look at doing the fermented foods in a airlock system.
So that reduces histamine.
There shouldn't be histamine in that ferment. And then the longer you ferment, the better as well. So when fermenting properly like that, it shouldn't be a high source of histamine. So,
we'll talk about the meat stocks first a bit more, and then if you could explain that about the airlock system, that would be good.
Okay, cool.
With the meat stocks, can you explain which meats are best to use for a lower histamine stock? Because apparently, like you said, pork is higher.
Yeah, so pork is high, but I find I have some clients that will only tolerate chicken and others that will only tolerate lamb, and they can't have the other ones. So there is different amines as well that people can be reacting to. That's all I can put it down to. So it really depends on the person finding
trial and error
for them. And for people that are really intolerant, the safer meats are going to be things like rabbit, duck, turkey, kangaroo.
Why is that?
Because they're more wild. They're not farmed conventionally. Even when you're doing your good quality grass-fed and everything like that, getting a wild animal is always going to be better. So wild caught is always going to be the best, and you're not concerned that it's going to have been fed grain. Even grass-fed can be grain finished. Sometimes they need to be grain supplemented. So that's for when it gets to the point that some people are really sensitive and they do need to worry about that. Other people like me, I don't worry about that. So plenty of people don't need to worry about that. Otherwise you can get caught up worrying about too many things, and then the worrying then makes you sick.
Yeah, exactly. So basically people would generally know what their symptoms are for when they get too high a level of histamines. And then when they start seeing those symptoms happening a lot, they need to pull back on whatever they're eating, I guess, and figure out, okay, let's try something else. It's sort of like that kind of thing? You just sort of trial things?
Yeah. So the way I would approach doing GAPS with someone with a histamine issue is that we would prioritize the histamine sources. So stocks and ferments are in.
Yeah.
They're what we want to be having, and not that when the ferments are done properly, they're not a histamine source, but they are going to cause die-off, and then that's a whole other can of worms, because
and that can get mixed up, can't it?
Yeah, when you're having fermented foods, probiotic-rich foods, and that's causing die-off, that'll cause a lot of symptoms that are pretty much the same as histamine symptoms or very similar, and as bacteria are dying off, they can release histamine as well. So there is potential for histamine releasing there too. So it is something that you need to go really slowly with. So when introducing the fermented foods, sometimes kraut juice isn't the best one to do first for some people. Some people find that is too strong, and they'll need to do something like fermented carrots and just do the brine from that. Or you can do asparagus or green beans. So ferments that are going to be much more gentle.
Yeah.
And then just starting with the brine from those, cooking it and gradually increasing. So what we're trying to do with GAPS is get to the actual bottom of the issue. Like, we want to resolve the underlying issue, not just go on a low histamine diet. So a lot of people that come to me with histamine issues will have been down that path of a low histamine diet. It's a very tempting path to stay on because they will reduce all the histamines in their diet and they will feel better. But what I find for most people is that they do that for a while, then they're like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, it's very restrictive. It's not fixing anything. I'm not going anywhere. You get to a place that's very stagnant. It's like, is this my life forever now on this really low histamine diet? So what we work at doing with GAPS is actually resolving the underlying issues, healing the gut lining. The mast cells are in the gut lining. So, whether it's just histamine intolerance from overgrowth of bacteria or there is that mast cell activation issue going on as well, GAPS is getting at both of those. And it is also reducing the toxicity in the body, which brings down that load on the liver so it can methylate properly. And then you're producing diamine oxidase properly. Then you're going to be changing the bacteria in the digestive system so it's not producing so much histamine. So you're actually getting to the bottom of all those issues that are causing it. So it's not just addressing the symptoms. It is getting to the core problem.
Yeah, because that's what I see a lot in questions in the chat groups is, my doctor or whatever has put me on a low histamine diet. And basically, do they just tell them just stay on that diet? Is that what they're told generally?
Well, that's pretty much it. You go really, really low histamine, and then they do a bit of a challenge and try and bring in and see what they can tolerate. But there's no end point there. It is just, okay, now that's what you eat
for the rest of your life.
No. Yeah, like it's not getting to the bottom of the problem. And I don't like that. I want to know
why and what I can do about it.
Yeah, and really it's the same with SIBO as well. It's like, I'll just follow this diet and like eat, don't eat any FODMAPs and then that's it. It's like, okay, now what? I don't know what else to do now. So I do get a lot of people coming to me when they're at that point. Okay, I've been doing FODMAPs and now I don't know what to do because that's it and I can't keep eating like this. And that's when GAPS goes and resolves the underlying issue. Same with low salicylates, low food chemicals, like any of these diets where you're kind of looking at it and going, okay, well, if I just go really low in this and then what? Whereas GAPS, people look at GAPS as restrictive, but GAPS has an end point. It's not eat like this forever because all the other foods are bad.
Yeah, that's right.
Real food is good food, and just eat these ones for this period of time following this protocol so that you can heal, so you can eat all real food.
Yeah.
And that's what the aim of GAPS is. You can bring back in potatoes. I eat potatoes.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not ashamed of it.
It's real food.
It took me a while though after doing GAPS, and I really talk I'm really conscious of how I talk about GAPS. It's not because all other foods are bad.
That's right.
It's just healing, so you can eat those foods. So now we very happily eat potatoes and sweet potatoes with no problem. I sometimes even eat sourdough now. So
I can't wait to try that again. I have tried it and not reacted, but I haven't tried making it. So I really want to get into that.
Yeah, I've just had some really good quality, locally made, properly stuff. And same. I have it. It'd probably be once every 6 months at the moment.
Yeah, same.
I have it once and I feel okay.
Yeah.
So that's that's the aim of GAPS.
It's encouraging.
Get there, and that you can enjoy the foods you want to enjoy with that awareness of, well, it's not going to be fake foods.
Yes.
It's going to be real foods. So So when you're looking at just going all these low food chemical diets, it doesn't sit well with me because then we're getting fears of real food.
Yeah.
Like, where are we going as humans if we're going to be cutting out all of this real food? Whereas GAPS, yes, we do cut out real food, but with the aim, the goal to bring it back in plus more. That is the goal of it. So
it's a healing diet. It's not something you do forever.
No, that's right.
So, sorry, I keep getting distracted with all sorts of things I want to ask you, but the meat stocks, so did you want to mention the best way to make them and store them to keep the histamines low, that kind of stuff?
So you want to do short cooking time. So as I said, pork we would be avoiding that when there's histamine issues. Beef is often an issue for people too, that they'll find that they can't tolerate much of it or not at all. And again, everyone's different. It's not, okay, you have a histamine issue, so now you should avoid all these things or keep these low. It's, you figured out you have a histamine issue, so figure out what your tolerance level is and what you can tolerate and just work with that. So I have some clients that can only do chicken for an hour. And then others that can easily do it for 3 hours. So between that 1 to 3 hours, I have some that can just get one drumstick and stick it in a pot of water and try and just do that for half an hour if they're really severe histamine issues. So it's figuring out what you tolerate. I would be starting with like a 3 hour one, and if that's fine, that's fine. And then you're just wanting to put it into glass jars, cool it as quickly as you can and get it into the freezer. And some people, that'll be fine to consume over the next week of them sitting in the freezer or two. Others it'll be shorter. So it's really just figuring out what is working for you and noticing, okay, when it's been in there a bit longer, then I start to sneeze and I'm getting this stuff going on. So we don't need to be completely free of symptoms of histamines. It really is just about keeping that at a manageable level where we're not just causing a lot of inflammation in the body whilst we're healing that. So I've seen really extreme histamine issues resolve in this way, and the stocks are a huge part of that. And the reason for that is because they're healing and repairing the gut lining. They're healing, repairing the gut lining where the mast cells are lying underneath that gut lining. The diamine oxidase is produced in the gut, and then from healing and repairing the gut lining that has this symbiotic relationship with the bacteria in our gut, we're starting to change that as well. And so when we bring in the ferments, we're starting to get rid of some of that bad bacteria, get that balance back in place, and then we see the histamine tolerance improve. So when it comes to bringing in, is that enough about stocks? Can I go on to ferments?
Yeah, go on to ferments, definitely.
Okay, cool. So when it comes to bringing in ferments, people can get really scared of a die-off reaction, and it's like, oh, is that okay? Like, oh, maybe that shouldn't happen. Maybe that's, I hear a lot, oh, I don't tolerate sauerkraut, or
that's what I hear.
This. Yeah, so that's not really the case. So what's happening is if you consume a probiotic that you are deficient in, it's going to make an impact. So if you kind of think about that, it's like whatever's not present in your gut, when you get it back in there, or, present in low numbers, when you get back in there, it's going to kick up the most fuss. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
If you're deficient in one strain, the things that can then cause a problem because that strain is deficient, they all overgrow because that strain's deficient. Right. You bring that strain back in, those guys aren't happy now because you're increasing that strain again.
Yeah, so it's knocking out the others.
Yeah, so it's like what you're deficient in.
You're going to have a fight.
Yeah, that's it. They have something to fight. If you're taking a probiotic and you're like, yep, great, I tolerate this probiotic really well, no symptoms, because you don't need it.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. So if you take a probiotic and you're like, whoa, okay, this one's causing die-off, it's because you need those strains. So that's what you're doing with the fermented food. In saying that, if you have some kraut juice and you're knocked you're laying in bed for a day, that's not okay.
No. So you basically need to bring it in so slowly that the reactions aren't crazy.
You're able to increase. So it's all about working very slowly. I have some clients, I've had people that have to put a drop of kraut juice in a glass of water, then take a drop of that water.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how slowly we can go with it. It's finding whatever level you tolerate. It's not about the amount you're taking, it's about the impact it's having.
Yeah.
So if you're taking that much and you're feeling that detox and that's starting to work for you, that's working for you.
Okay. Now, can you explain what you mean by the airlock when you're making your ferments?
So an airlock. The ones that I use, can I mention the website I get them
Yeah,
from?
I don't care.
Well, there's no affiliation for either of us.
No.
But I get them from, and I send my clients to Oz Pharma. And they've got the Le Parfait Fido fermenting jars on there, and they've got an airlock in the top.
Okay.
So, so what happens is when you're fermenting with an airlock, it's not letting any oxygen into your ferment. There's the kind of mason jar fermenting has been really popularized as being the way of fermenting. You just kind of put it all in a mason jar and put the lid on. That's not how I ferment anymore. I like to use an airlock. I find my ferments turn out better. I don't get mold in them ever. And I find they're nicer, and I find my clients tolerate them better when they're done like this. And that is, I think, is because they're not producing the histamines.
Yes.
So that is the best way to do your fermenting if you've got histamine intolerance. So it's just like a Fido jar. It's got a little hole in the top and this pipe that just sits into the hole, and you just put some water in it. I called it an airlock. I should really say it's a water lock.
Okay.
So, you fill that with water, and then the carbon dioxide that's produced while it's fermenting can just bubble out through the water without letting any oxygen into the ferment. So you don't want oxygen in your ferment. So fermenting in that way, you'll have lots of success. Some people are a bit scared of fermenting, of mold and how it's all going to turn out. So you can not worry so much when you do it in that. I've never had a moldy ferment. They always turn out really, really well in that. So that's the way I'd recommend doing it with histamine issues.
What about using a crock that has the water lock at the top?
Yeah, absolutely. So
that's what I have.
Yeah, same deal. So that's traditionally what was used. And that water, you feel there's like a moat kind of going around where the lid sits, and that seals where the lid crack kind of is between the lid and the pot, and that water seals up that, and carbon dioxide bubbles out through the water and can't enter. And other ways it was done traditionally, it was done in like these concrete pots, and they were sealed shut with lard. So traditionally it was always done anaerobically.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. So that's the meat stocks and the fermented foods are super important. Is that like the two most important foods for helping to heal histamine reactions? Yeah,
when we're kind of thinking of the specific foods, they're the really big ones. But it is that overall, when you're thinking about the kind of protocol that GAPS is, it's very whole food. It's looking at restoring nutrient deficiencies. It's removing toxicity from the body by, taking away foods that are increasing inflammation and toxicity. So it's like this overall effect that's being had in the reduction of toxicity, that's reducing the load on the liver, that's allowing the body to heal. So it's a combination of all those things. Yeah. But I do really feel like the meat stocks and the ferments are really pinnacle in that they're really, really important.
It's almost like they're the medicine.
Yeah.
The other stuff is the food.
Yeah. And it's like I see histamine intolerance improve most in those first stages of GAPS. That's where we see the big changes in histamine issues. So another kind of aspect, you can go down a really long tunnel with looking at histamine stuff, because there's so many different ways that the body can be overloaded with toxicity. So if you have like chemical toxicity, like I've got one client that has Agent Orange in their system, like in Roundup and, all those kind of glyphosates, like, so many different things you can have in your system that's going to put a load on your liver. Then there's also looking down the path of metals. If you've got amalgam fillings, or even if you don't, you can have metal issues. Metal puts that load on the whole system, and particularly the liver. And then there's also mold. So when there's mold issues, histamine issues are very common. And I know that was a big thing for me. I lived in mold, and that was when my histamine issues went crazy, whereas before I was drinking bone broths, early in my days of gut healing when I didn't know about meat stocks. So I tolerated bone broths fine, but then at this stage, once I was living in a moldy house, like there's no way I could drink a bone broth. So so if it's something that you've noticed has just all of a sudden become this really big issue, and you're like, well, all my life, you may have noticed, you may be able to reflect, and I can look back and go, I used to occasionally get hives, and you can say that you would get the sneezing fits if it's suddenly histamine issues have really come on really bad and where you're just not tolerating them at all, you're kind of then looking, okay, what's going on here? It could be
something in the environment. Could be,
or you could have been really sick and taking heaps of antibiotics and really upset your bacteria, and that could have triggered it.
Or had something like salmonella, which decimates your gut.
Exactly. Yeah, that could trigger it, or it could be this toxic overload on your body that's triggering it.
Right.
And something that's really interesting is the connection with histamine and zinc and copper balance. So when histamine is high, that can throw off your zinc and copper balance. So that's when we're talking about zinc and copper balance, people might have heard of the term pyrols or pyroluria or cryptopyroluria. And that is a whole nother podcast in itself. But
we have done one on that.
Oh, yes, that's right, we did.
Yeah.
Oh, you did one. No,
I did one with Jules Galloway.
You did one with Jules. Yeah, I was thinking that then. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. So that's a whole nother, kettle of fish. But it is something that we see goes hand in hand. And like most people with gut issues will end up having this histamine intolerance. And then we see that their zinc and copper's out of balance as well. And they're diagnosed with pyroluria. So basically, cryptopyroluria is when your blood is producing too many pyrols and they bind to zinc, B6, omega-6 to be removed from the body, and you end up deficient in those things. Zinc and copper are on the balancing beam, so zinc's low, copper ends up high. So you just end up with the symptoms of zinc deficiency, copper toxicity, omega-6 deficiency, B6 deficiency. And that's usually remedied with supplementing.
Yeah.
And symptoms of that are things like anxiety, skin issues, gut issues, abdominal pain, sensitivity to noise, light and sound, low sex drive. There's a whole list. So it's just really interesting, the relationship between histamine and pyrols, because pyrols is something that's like, we don't know what causes it. There's not really an answer for that, but it is related to histamine intolerance. So some people kind of go down the path of testing and they're like, oh, I've got MTHFR and my histamine's really high and my zinc and copper's off. So it's just good to see when you can kind of trace that back to what's causing the issues here.
Okay. So, it's a lot to take in. I'm also looking at questions from people, but I'm not sure if it's the right time for these yet. So basically, when someone comes to you with histamine issues, what would be your first step? Just say it's someone who maybe is still on a regular diet, not on a particularly healthy whole foods diet, just a regular diet. What would you do first?
Okay, so first step would be looking at something in the realm of whole food, paleo, full GAPS, Western A price. It always depends on the person, so it's always hard to go, if someone comes to me with this,
that's true.
Yeah, because I always look at the person, what they want to do, their lifestyle, their family, what's going to work for them. We take all of those factors into account to come up with an approach that feels good for them. But it would be leaning towards that food first, basically.
So basically traditional healing foods that are they're low inflammation type of diets, aren't they too?
Yeah, they're going to reduce inflammation. They're going to reduce toxicity. They're going that in itself, it's going to start with gut healing. It's going to start changing the bacteria. So that's a really good start. And for some people that might be spending months gradually moving over to a healing diet. For other people, they might just go, right, in the next 2 weeks, we're on it.
Everything's out of the pantry and freezer and depends on the person, doesn't it?
Exactly. Very different for everyone. I spent quite a while changing my diet.
Me too. Years.
Yeah. So, it really depends on the person how they go about that, but it will be food-focused first. And I find it's so much, it's like working backwards through the problem. If we go into testing first, we'll get results. We'll uncover stuff. We'll get, results from the testing that says, oh, yes, this, these markers are out, these markers are out. But we've not done everything we can to resolve any underlying issue first. So testing is kind of my last resort. It's let's do everything we can first. Let's start with the food. Let's build the foundation of a really healthy whole food diet. then we might step up the healing and work on more of the healing foods and get those in and get some more healing happening. Then we might start to look at what could be the sources of toxicity here. Is there mold? Is there metals? You know, what kind of stuff are we dealing with here? And then we kind of go down that path, and it's every step as we need to. Some people will go from a standard diet to a paleo style diet, feel amazing, and they'll go problem solved. So they don't need to do anything else. They could have gone and done all the testing and all the supplements and worked in a different way, but just changing to a whole food paleo style diet, they're like, my health is fantastic. So you don't need to fix what's not broken. If that's they're feeling fantastic, that's as far as they need to go. Yeah. But if we do that and we're like, yeah, I feel heaps better. I've seen this resolve and, you know, feeling much better, but still, you know, this and this, I'd like to see that resolve. So that's when we step up the healing and really get onto a more healing kind of diet. And then, you know, same thing. For some people, that'll be it. They'll be like, yeah, I'm great now. Other people, okay, we really need to look at doing intro GAPS and really get into the deeper healing. And then just going on from there, we do intro GAPS. For some people, that's great. Everything's fixed and they're great. And then if not, well, then, okay, well, what's the source of toxicity here? We need to look deeper, metals, mold. So, you know, it's that kind of process of peeling back the layers.
Yeah. What about, like, if someone decided, okay, I'm going to do paleo or full GAPS or whatever, so basically they would just have to remove the foods that they really react to for a while and bring them in as they can? Is that how they would do it?
So if that was the first step they were going to take, I'd be more focused on what they're adding in, because the easiest way to change your diet is by adding things in first.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of that just overtakes the other things you're eating. So I would be adding in short cooked meat stocks, more vegetables and meat based kind of meals. So getting more over to that whole food style of eating, and then just looking at the really high triggers of histamine. So not doing leftovers, trying to cook things a short amount of time. You may need to limit your intake of avocado. You might find you can have it one day but not the next. So just playing around with that, because it's not going to just be about limiting histamines. It's going to be about the reduction in inflammation in your body.
Yes,
and also about the reduced toxic load on your liver.
So just that will help the reactions to be less already.
Yeah, you're addressing it from many perspectives there.
Yeah.
Like, to start bringing down that reactiveness. So as you can see, it's like it's so different for every person, how depending on where they're at, what they're doing. Some people will come to me and they'll just go, I'm just going to go full on in whatever you tell me to do. Like, because they're at a point where they've been
they're desperate.
So long, that we get onto things really quickly. And for others, it's like definitely an issue, not so bad. Okay, how do I go about this? And in that case, it's not worth the stress and overwhelm of jumping straight into something. You're better off taking more gentle approach. But yeah, you go.
I was going to say, or they have family that says, I'm not changing my diet, which does make it a lot slower.
Yeah, which is fine as well, because that's all part of the process.
Yeah.
Is, you know, getting everyone on board or not, if you know, just focusing on you if that's what it takes. And and there's nothing better for everyone else than to see what you're doing. Yeah. Because as humans, we naturally gravitate towards good health if we know how it's possible. It's just there's so much confusion, we don't know how to do it.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. One lady asks that she would like to know about wine and that why it triggers a response in her while it doesn't in others. Could it be that it's to do with the preservatives rather than fermentation?
Hard to know for sure. But if she is intolerant to histamines, it can be that. So that is a very common issue with wine. Wine's high in histamine. So if people with histamine intolerance generally can't drink wine, particularly red wine. Yeah. It would really depend if that is a case of there being histamine intolerance. Has she asked this question in relation to histamine? Like,
yes. She said, I would love to know about wine, fermentation, preservatives, and histamine reaction. Sometimes some wines really trigger off a response in me whilst others don't. So she just wanted to know if it was preservatives or was it fermentation or...
so
yeah,
some
sorry,
wines
I didn't read it properly.
Well, that's okay, while some wines don't. So yeah, well, it can be a few things going on. It could be salicylates. It could be that some are higher in salicylates, and maybe that's triggering her as well. It could be the preservatives that in some that's triggering her. I'm not an expert on wine production, but I know that, but I know that some processes can be worse than others in how they process it and how they make it. I don't really know.
It's interesting how they're finding so much like glyphosate in wines now.
Yeah, so it could be that as well. So yeah, it could definitely be the quality. So I would be suggesting going for the preservative-free organic kind of wines would be your best bet.
Okay, someone else asks, if a mast cell activation disorder is suspected but the person doesn't have raised tryptase levels in a blood test, does this rule MCA out as a cause, specifically in regards to searching for causes of idiopathic reactions and anaphylaxis? Or could it have contributed but not always show raised levels? And if you do have or suspect MCA issues, how do you treat it? So you've said that bit, but do you want me to read that again?
Yes, that's a big question.
It is. Okay, so if mast cell activation is suspected, but they don't have raised tryptase levels in the blood test, does this rule it out?
No. So it doesn't rule it out. It's not the only way to test for it. I will say first, though, that I don't know a lot about testing for mast cell activation because I don't do it. So I don't know it in depth, but I do know that that's not going to be the only thing that you're going to test for. It's not going to not going to rule it out.
Well, like you said, there's so many different variables to these reactions.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that can still be normal. Okay, that's the first bit answered.
Okay, and she said in regards to searching for causes for idiopathic reactions and anaphylaxis, that's what they're trying to figure out, what's the cause. So she's saying if the raised tryptase levels are not in the blood test, could it still be the cause of anaphylaxis type reactions?
So yes, answer is yes.
Yes, okay. Or could it have contributed but not show rapid? Yeah, okay. And then she asks how to treat it. So basically MCA is treated the same way as what you've just been saying with all the history.
So I there's so much with testing. Testing, we can really kind of put testing on this pedestal of, well, it gives us an answer. But testing is like trying to see the whole world through a pinhole.
Yeah.
That it's we can only test for what we know. Like as in we're only testing because we know about this test and we know that this might impact this and we're testing that. So it's like looking at the world through a pinhole. It's very hard to just do testing and find the cause of something. And that's one of the big reasons I don't like testing, because you can spend thousands of dollars trying to find that. And in the way that I work with people with GAPS, it wouldn't change the way I'm approaching it.
Yeah.
So for this person that's trying to investigate and find the causes of this idiopathic anaphylaxis, my approach would be down the path of GAPS, like of looking, first GAPS, intro, healing, seeing how that goes, and then looking for sources of toxicity.
Yeah.
So looking mold would be a massive one I would be looking for in that case, and also looking at metals. So yeah, it'd be going down that path of, okay, well, what can possibly be causing this? This is a symptom. It's not the primary issue. Even if they did discover that mast cell disorder is causing the anaphylaxis,
it's still a symptom.
Not the primary issue. It's pointing us towards something else going on. So I would be trying to figure that out.
So if you went through working on healing with food first and then you decided still not getting to where I need to be and maybe it's mold or metals, then you would actually test for those?
Sometimes we will. I do a combination of clinical picture, investigating through conversation, like what, getting the history.
Of course,
and investigating, well, yes, we lived in a very mouldy house, and okay, that's indicating that that's probably an issue. So sometimes we have enough evidence and clinical
testing,
yes, to then not spend the money on testing, because we can just start addressing it. The methods we're using to address it do no harm. So we know very quickly whether or not it's helping. So yeah, that again with the testing. Sometimes definitely I do test with mold. Sometimes people want to see that on the piece of paper to know, okay, well, yeah, look, there's the mold. That's what that causes, and that can help. It can help seeing that test result. So I think in one of the podcasts I did with you, I said that I don't like testing, and then I often get clients now and they're like, I know you don't like testing. And I'm like, no, it's not that I don't like it.
Just that you don't want to overdo it.
Yeah, I don't like overdoing it. I don't like encouraging clients to get testing thinking that that's going to help them get the answer. But if someone feels like that getting a test and seeing something there helps them, then go for it. Like that's...
Or if it can help to persuade the family to change that,
you can get a test result and go, look, mold, and show family members and go, look, this is the result, and that's the mold, and that's what that causes. That can be really helpful.
Yeah.
And for people with MTHFR, they might test and then they're able to go to their parents and go, look, like I did this test and we've got this gene mutation. That means you're probably going to have it too. You know, if they've got both, then they're definitely going to have it. You know, you're probably going to have this too. And, you know, this is what it causes and puts you at risk for, and that could help their parents then change their diet. And you know, so testing can be helpful in so many ways like that as well.
Yeah.
What were we talking about?
No, we were just talking about how to treat MCA, but that's fine. We were getting on to other things that are also important.
Yeah.
Okay, another couple of quick questions. Someone asked, how do you know you are having histamine reactions? I think what I've had asked many times is, how do you tell the difference between histamine reaction and what was the other thing you talked about earlier?
Die-off.
Yeah. How you can tell you really can't tell the difference sometimes, can you?
Very hard to tell, and it's like, it's like being a detective with that one. It is hard to tell, and it's a bit frustrating. But generally, the histamine response will be to a food, like, you know, stocks, leftovers, avocados, like, you know, it'll be to a food. Whereas the die-off will usually be from a probiotic food. So that's kind of how you will tell the difference. But yeah, it is hard to tell at times, and it's kind of person to person that will try and put the story together of, okay, what did you have when you had that? Okay, then you had that. Well, it's, you know, more likely to be this. So sometimes it's a combination of. So.
And I know when you're so sick and you're overwhelmed with life in general, it's all too hard. And I think that's when having a practitioner does help, because they're looking at it from outside of the stress. And they go, okay, absolutely. Can you see that this correlates with this? And they go, of course, but they just didn't see it because they were too stressed.
Well, that's exactly what I needed when I was living in the mold situation. That was years ago, and it was when I first started working with Becky Plotner. So, most listeners will have heard of Becky because she's been on your podcast a couple of times. So she's my mentor, and she is absolutely incredible. And so she was mentoring me and being my practitioner as well. I'd talk to her about my own stuff. And I couldn't have got through that without her. And I'm a GAPS practitioner, but it doesn't matter about having it's not about, well, I know about GAPS, so I need a practitioner. It was like, well, I need someone else to look at this for me and help me, because I'm very
different pair of eyes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it can be hard.
Yeah. So here another lady says, can histamine reactions present as something other than ordinary symptoms? My son's blood test came back high for histamine, but he doesn't get things like hives, eczema, sniffles, etc. Can high histamine levels be an indicator if something else in his body is dealing with, like an infection or something?
There are the other symptoms like dilation of the blood vessels in the brain, and then being overly focused on things. If he is a bit of that type A personality, it can be having trouble falling asleep. It can be waking up feeling like you haven't slept and feeling the heaviness in the arms and legs. So there are other symptoms too that may not be those. And also I don't always see histamine testing as that reliable either, because your histamine can fluctuate so much.
Of course, in a day.
He could have just eaten avocados, strawberries, and leftover meat for lunch. And then you test and histamine levels are high. So I am a big advocate of don't try and fix what's not broken. So if you're not seeing a problem there, I wouldn't just trust from that one test. Testing tests one moment in time.
Yeah.
So that's where the weakness of testing, one of the weaknesses of testing, is that it just tests one moment in time.
Yeah.
So all you are seeing is where his histamine levels were at for that one moment in time. They might not consistently be high. So that would be a matter of see a practitioner and talk that one out and try and investigate what's actually going on for him on a whole.
Okay. So have you been through histamine issues yourself with so when you had the mold stuff, I suppose you did.
Yeah, I did.
One lady asks for some practical ideas on snacks for high histamine issues. She's intolerant to nuts, eggs, gluten and dairy and desperate for snack suggestions. She's not on GAPS. She just, she said, I usually snack on strawberries, sunflower seeds and avocado with a crying face. Oh, poor thing.
Well, I guess it does depend on what her histamine responses are like. She might be able to still have them occasionally, depending on, what her histamine response is like. Did you say dairy was out then?
Dairy's out.
Oh, my goodness.
I know.
You have to leave that one with me. I did see her.
Yeah, because I tagged you.
Yeah.
I'm like, help Elyse.
You might have to leave that one with me and I'll think of something for her, because that's hard when nuts, dairy and eggs out. It's like, oh, my gosh, what do you say?
Is gelatin usually an issue? It is, isn't it?
Yeah. Because gelatin's
long
fairly equivalent to having like really
bone
bone broth.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have a think about that one.
Yes, we'll brainstorm that one of snacks. It's probably blueberries are generally okay.
Yes, yep. That's nice instead of strawberries.
Yeah. I'll have to think.
What about egg yolks? Are they good for people with histamine?
She doesn't have eggs.
Oh, she did say that. Sorry. See?
Yeah. I remember the egg one because I was like, oh, that takes out a lot of snacks.
But that is a question that I am wondering, because is that usually okay? Eggs?
Yeah, it's in the egg white where there's a protein that liberates histamine.
Okay.
So, but for a lot of people, that's fine. They can eat eggs no problem without a histamine response. So it is really about just figuring out where it all lies for you and what. Yeah, I just thought of a snack for that lady, maybe like veggie sticks with a dip that's not high in histamine.
Yeah.
So she could make some kind of dip.
If
Maybe
you think of a particular one. Well, what about pate?
Liver is high in histamine, but it's one I still want people to have. So it'd really be about her doing that exploration of what am I tolerating? Where's my level of tolerance? And
So I just keep thinking of things and then going, no. We'll think of something.
Yes, we'll think of something and we'll put that on there for her.
Yeah. This lady says, my poor daughter is a case study at the Children's Hospital and unfortunately is on a lot of very strong medications. We've been following the autoimmune protocol. Would love to know what's helping others in the same situation with histamine issues. Oh, I guess, well, you've answered that really in the rest of the podcast. That's what's going to help.
Yeah. So,
but I would definitely go with a practitioner for that case.
Yeah, I definitely think so as well, because it's going to be like, investigating what's going on, So
if she's already on a heap of medications.
Yeah, and so speaking of medications, one's meant antihistamines, because that obviously needs to be talked about when we're talking about histamines.
Yes.
So antihistamines can seem like a good answer when they're kind of alleviating that response. But the thing with antihistamines is that they don't actually reduce the histamines. They just take it away from the receptor, basically. So they're not... Yeah, so it's leaving histamine floating around in your body. and not actually removing those histamines. So when you're taking the antihistamine, histamine can still be floating around and causing a problem. Plus, taking antihistamine reduces your diamine oxidase, that enzyme we were talking about that
does it?
Breaks down histamine. So when you're taking antihistamine, it actually further impedes your production of that.
So basically you're making a worse long-term result.
Yeah. And you're becoming reliant on the antihistamines because your histamine tolerance is going to become worse whilst taking antihistamines.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like emergency only.
Right.
Not something, I've just had...
Your eyes have swollen up or something, then yes, take antihistamine.
Urgent, take the antihistamine. But it's the people that are taking daily antihistamine that your histamine tolerance is going to become worse. And they'll probably already know that by seeing that they've got to take higher doses or, they're taking it and still reacting and,
Okay, that's good to know. This lady, I'm just trying to read through her questions to see if there's any we haven't answered.
Something else just popped into my mind
go ahead.
that I didn't mention is that being dehydrated is a big issue with histamine intolerance. So that's something that people should be onto, especially if they've got histamine intolerance, that just being dehydrated, that can exacerbate and make worse those histamine issues.
It's like you're concentrating everything.
Yeah. So it's because your body will then actually release more histamine when you're dehydrated to help prevent further dehydration. It's your body, it's a protective mechanism.
Okay.
So hydrate.
Interesting. Yes. She wants to know, she says she can't do meat stock on the stove because her husband hates the smell. How long should I cook in the pressure cooker? I think we should mention pressure cookers.
Yes, mention not to use them.
Yes. There's just been back and forth on this issue for so long. It's been quite confusing for people in my group. So if you can shed some light.
Yeah. So as far as GAPS and Dr. Natasha is concerned, she doesn't recommend the use of pressure cookers because they do actually destroy some of the nutrients in the food. So pressure cookers are out, unfortunately. But with the meat stock on the stove, I'd be wondering why it's smelling so much.
I thought maybe she means bone broth, because bone broth, especially beef bone broth, it does smell yuck. But if you're making chicken stock, it smells like chicken soup.
Yeah, exactly. And even doing oxtail or lamb meat stocks, they just kind of smell like dinner. They don't really
smell delicious.
Yeah, they don't. It's those leaving it for 2 days on the stove that you get that really strong smelling bone broth. So maybe, I don't know.
That's probably what it is. Unless her husband doesn't eat meat or something.
Maybe, that could be the case as well.
But I can ask her about that. Pressure cookers, another thing to mention with them is you're increasing the cooking time sort of thing. So you're creating more higher histamines, even though you're only cooking it maybe for 2 or 3 hours, but really you're cooking it for 6, right?
Well, I don't think that, I'm not 100% on that one, but I don't think that's going to increase the histamine because it still is only cooking for that time. It's the actual physical time of cooking that it gives time for those histamines to increase. So I don't think that would be the case. Okay,
because I saw someone answer in my group saying, someone who's had really major histamine issues, saying that that's why she doesn't use a pressure cooker.
Yeah, well, maybe it's it could be a few things because it could just be...
Maybe she reacted more to pressure cooker stock, maybe it was too much for her.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. Okay, I'll see if there's any more questions. I think we're just about to the end of the questions. We've probably answered most things. Well, you have, I should say. It looks like we've done pretty well. Do you have anything else you can think of that we need to mention?
I feel like we've covered it well, and I feel like we didn't go off on as many tangents.
I know, we did so well.
We did so well.
Thursday afternoon's obviously a good time.
Yes, it is. I know, it must be. But I just with the whole histamine thing, it really is about just taking it a step at a time. It can feel really overwhelming when you're just told histamine's a problem, you need to go on a low histamine diet. It is about finding the cause, and often a conversation with a practitioner, you can nut that out and see, okay, well, this is what could be going on. But health is a whole picture. So it's not a matter of just going, histamine intolerance, let's focus on that. It's where's all of your health at with this histamine intolerance being a part of that. We need to look at the whole picture and start seeing how do we move your health forward holistically. And that includes stress, overwhelm, how busy your life is, because that stress increases histamine. I didn't mention that. So being stressed, that's going to increase histamine.
And is it being overtired? Doesn't that increase histamines?
Yes, because that's
stress
on
too.
the body. Yeah. So there's many factors there. We know mindfulness, meditation, things like that. Anything where you're slowing down, stopping, breathing, that all reduces histamines. So it's looking at it as a whole big picture of your health. And for people with complex health issues, it can get really overwhelming, but that's where you should be working with a practitioner that is taking that holistic approach, looking at the whole picture and going, in your case, what is the best approach we can take here to start moving forward?
One of the things that Elyse and I have been working on is a mentoring program for people that are really stuck and need some one-on-one help. And we go through all this with them. And it's interesting, you know, when you start to work through, when you're looking at it holistically, you're going, okay, how are you going in? Do you want to mention those different areas that we talk about? Like that circle?
You know, that circle.
That circle thing that we do?
Yes, the very important circle.
Yes.
So we look at all aspects of life. So we're looking at your social life, community, having family around you, having fun and laughter, and I can't remember the circle now.
I have to look it up.
It's really important. So having some kind of spirituality in your life, some kind of spiritual connection, looking at getting out in nature, moving your body, I mentioned that one, and not having that, you know, stress in your life, looking at where things are at with your career and finances as well, because that can be a big source of stress. So it's looking at the whole picture, but seeing that people come to us because food is a big important part of that picture. So we see food as a piece of that puzzle. And by getting nutrition right and getting your body functioning as well as it can, it feeds into those other areas of your life. When it comes to having a long-term, healthy, happy life, the other areas matter more than nutrition. But nutrition helps you function well in those other areas. So it's like, you know, it's a really important piece of the puzzle. So
I think you missed movement.
Movement. So looking at, so in the mentoring program that Joe and I are going to do with people, where it's going to be a one-on-one thing, so, well, two-on-one.
One at a time, though.
One client at a time, and we would work individually. You know, I would have a session with them, Joe would have a session with them, and that kind of thing. So what we're doing with people is it's really about kind of looking at where you are right now and helping you take those next steps. So it will be looking holistically at everything that's going on in your life with a big focus on food, because we know how important that is to the people that we work with.
And for me, that's my main area that I focus on with people.
Yeah, well, but same. And
Elyse is good with explaining the why and the how to move forward and to make a plan and all of that kind of thing. And I go, okay, let me show you how to do this practically in the kitchen when you haven't got much time.
Which is what everybody needs. So I think it's a really good combination of what we've got going on there to make it actually doable for people, that you're able to start doing this. So the mentoring program is best for those people that are like, okay, I've been following Joe for a really long time and I've tried a lot of these things and I'm, you know, I know this is what I need to be doing, but I just don't know how to take the next step. You know, my family are eating like this and I don't know how to help them, and I don't know how to fit it in. I don't have time. I feel overwhelmed. It's like that's the kind of people we're aiming to work with in this, to go, right, we're going to help you to start taking those next steps. And really important is that it's always focusing on that your whole life's improving, because I've just worked with too many people early in my days of being a practitioner, where I was very gung-ho and focused on nutrition as a nutritionist, that I wasn't considering enough the other areas of people's lives. And I'd end up with clients that were getting the nutrition right at the expense of every other area of their life. So and I did it myself. So we're really focused on that. It's like our experience so far doing what we've been doing is coming out in this mentoring that we can then, we can help other people do that.
You know, when we get these really difficult emails from people who just have so much going on in their life with anxiety and depression and hormone issues and adrenal fatigue and histamine issues and, they've been in and out of therapy all their life, all this kind of stuff. You can't just give them a simple do this diet and you will be better. This is just so much more to it. It all helps, like the nutrition helps, but we definitely want to try and just remind people that, you can simply work on different things that will help you to get great big leaps forward without having to stress out over just diet.
Yeah, and we can't have everyone move in with us, and that's what I'd like to do. Sometimes I'm like, why don't you just come
here? Yeah, I've thought about that too.
I'll help you, and then so this is like second best to that, because we can't have you move in with us. We're going to just coach you instead.
I often feel like saying, look, just move in with my mum across the road. She has a granny flat, but I can't do that now because my son's living in it.
Well, one day my dream one day is to have some kind of retreat centre. So I will be able to
I think that's a good idea.
My retreat centre, and then it'll help you.
Yeah. We should also mention our seminars.
Yay, of course. How could we forget the seminars?
Yeah. I'll probably mention it in the intro, so if sorry if you're hearing it twice, but so obviously not everyone can do one-on-one mentoring. We want to reach as many people as we can with this message, so we're taking our seminar on the road.
Yay! So Nourishing Your Family will be hitting North Queensland, Joe's Stomping Ground. What have we got? The 9th of September
is Townsville.
Which is a Monday. 12th of September is Cairns, which is a Thursday. Then 13th of September on a Friday will be Atherton.
Yep. So we're excited about that, and we do have plans for further south. So stay tuned. Hopefully November we'll be able to do some around Byron Bay, Brisbane.
Yes, we have to do it. We have to.
So if you're in other areas and you're desperate for us to come see you, just like hassle us on Facebook or something, and then the more people in your area that hassle us, the more likely we'll come.
Yes, absolutely. That's a really good idea. Because, one thing Joe and I have discussed about this show that we're getting on the road is that we want to reach the people that don't get the big health seminars coming into their towns. Like, we want to reach the people that don't usually access this kind of thing. We want to get to everybody.
Yeah, we do. We really would love to get to some, country towns. I know Emerald has been waiting for a long time, and Dolby and all these places like that. So we're hoping that we can do that. Yeah, Toowoomba, and just it'll be little by little because we have families and we can fit it in here and there. But it's just so important to, both Elyse and I have been through big health journeys, and when we talk to people about what we've been through and what we've done, we know that helps to encourage them, and then to say, here's some steps you can take. This is where to start. It can be the beginning of something really good. So
yeah, absolutely. And we're so big on inspiring, not overwhelming, and giving you food to eat too. So that always helps.
Tastings, lots of tastings. I tested some today and they were very yummy.
Oh, awesome.
I won't say
about the cupcakes.
Oh yes, I did eat 3 of those today, but they were mini.
Yeah, well, I need to make some, so send me the recipe.
Okay, I will definitely. All right, thank you so much, Elyse. I think that will be very helpful for people, so I really appreciate you coming on the show. If anyone wants to contact you, do you want to just tell them how? I'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, link in the show notes. It's ElyseComerford.com. That's my website. You can also email support@ElyseComerford.com, and you'll get answered by my assistant Mel, and she can help book you in as well. So I do free 30-minute initial consults, and that is just to have that conversation, because really people come to me like, I don't even know. I don't know if I should do GAPS. I don't know. This is what's going on. And so I really like to give people a bit of an explanation. Well, from what I can see, what you've told me so far, this is what I think's kind of going on, so you can understand the process and how I recommend approaching it.
Yeah, that's good. So have a chat to Elyse if you need some practitioner help. I really recommend her. She's very good.
Oh,
She's helped me heaps.
Thanks, Jo.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys, for listening, and we'll be back in a fortnight with another podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us by emailing help@quirkycooking.com.au, or you can email Elyse on her contact form on her website.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Bye, Jo.
Bye.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.